saw it was locked. Tried it earlier and it was locked. So I believe some of the candidates, some of the lady candidates are interested. I said, and this is doesn't really work.
We should have talked to the implication, but I guess you and I do. One to cover for the other.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a smart kid. Here the last time when Rebecca couldn't make it, I thought it was only decent to ask him. And I should have told him make the apple butter boil this year, but Mom wasn't feeling good that day, so I didn't make the apple butter boil. So you do what you have to do.
You make those decisions on a day-to-day basis, hour to hour, maybe.
Well, she was going to go on a trip that day. A friend of her, childhood friend, called her in Thursday. I don't think I'm going. Don't feel the back. Then the next day, my stomach's upset. I'm going to church. Yeah, I got her here. So she's back on the left-hand side as we look out here next to the aisle, next to the black. I don't believe. So, okay, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Mifflin County Farm Bureau Political Education Program Committee, I want to welcome all of you to our Major Candidate Forum. We will be opening with a pledge of the flag and an invocation. If that's offensive to anyone, you're free to go to the lobby until after the opening, but we've always opened our meetings this way, and we intend to continue to do that. At this time, I'd ask you all rise as we pledge to this flag to this great country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Mark Ellinger will lead us in a word of invocation.
Would you join me in prayer? Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the ability to come here tonight to listen to the candidates. We ask that you would be with us. We ask you would be with them. We thank you, Lord, we live in a country where we do have the opportunity to decide who our leaders will be. We thank you for the liberties you've given us. We thank you for the many blessings you have given us. When we look around this world and see other people who do not have the opportunities we have, we realize how blessed we are. But most of all, dear Lord, we want to thank you for your Son, our Lord, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mark. For any of you that aren't acquainted with our procedure, we've had the same format for over 30 years, some think pretty close 40 years. We do all written questions, and there will be young people circulating with cards for you to write your questions out. See that your questions you get sent forward. We have a panel here that will screen the questions. The questions have to be such that every candidate can answer them fairly, no personal attacks or personal questions. We're going to open with Mark Friedenberg. He's a candidate for the 12th Congressional District. Just so to let you know what the procedure is, he'll have 1 minute to introduce himself. We've allowed for 4 questions, and he'll have a minute to answer each question. And then he will also have a 4-minute summation. So Mark, at this time, if you'd come forward.
Okay, good evening. My name is Mark Friedenberg. I'm the Democratic candidate in the 12th Congressional District, which includes this entire county. In my day job, I teach for Penn State. I teach technology, law, and policy. I'm a lawyer, and I have a master's degree in information sciences and technology. And I think that gives me some insight, especially into the rural broadband issues that I think a lot of farmers are concerned about. And I think I understand some of the challenges that we run into trying to get companies like Comcast to wire up population areas that don't have a lot of density, that they'll never see it worth their while to invest in wiring up, for example, farming communities. And that's going to make it really difficult for farmers to be able to get access to markets for their goods, to participate in modern American life in a meaningful way. I've been talking to a lot of farmers. I'm not one myself, but I think the issue that I see around here that seems to be the biggest is the collapse in milk prices, and steel tariffs would be another big issue. This is my first time campaigning. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you.
We do have one question here, Mark. If elected as a state legislator or so forth as a federal legislator, would you support a bill that would allow random drug testing of a state or federal elected official?
I suppose I would support that law at the federal level. I do support decriminalization of marijuana for recreational purposes. I think that is something that keeps a lot of good people from being able to enter the workforce. I think it is something that has effects on our criminal justice system that are not distributed equally among all classes of people. But I think if that seems to be an issue that people are deeply concerned about, that people are taking pharmaceuticals, I understand that. My concern, much deeper concern, I think, is people who are in the pocket of companies that make pharmaceuticals. I think my opponent, Tom Marino, is one of them, who is taking $100,000 from this pharmaceutical industry and made it possible, passed legislation that made it possible for opioid painkillers to flood our streets. I think that's a really significant problem that we need to address.
What are your thoughts on immigration, specifically the mob going from Guatemala through Mexico to the United States at the current time?
I think immigration really defines who we are as Americans. We're a nation of immigrants. We are stronger for our system of immigration, for our being a beacon of hope to the world. We should be moral leaders. We should, and I think still do, treat all people fairly. And I know, of course, that farmers rely upon seasonal and a year-round labor force that relies upon workers from abroad for a lot of reasons. American citizens don't want to do jobs that are necessary on the farm. To the specific question, the question said the word mob, and I don't like that term. These are people who are fleeing from war-torn countries. They are taking an incredibly dangerous journey with their children and themselves for the promise of a better life, and we'll deal with that situation using the laws that we already have on the books. I'm much more concerned about people who are already in this country and what we can do to help them.
Okay, your last question here. Both parties seem to be preserving their own agendas in Washington, and it seems to be driving both sides farther and farther apart. What are your thoughts on bringing them back to the civility of reaching out to each other across the aisle?
Yeah, and what an incredibly timely question. Of course, yesterday was terrible news that made clear perhaps how divided we are as a country, although it was just one person, it seems, actions. I think that we need to have people we need to elect better people to office at all levels. We need to elect people who are interested in doing the job, who are interested in actually helping their communities, and that's why I'm running. I have a job at Penn State that I love, and I moved to Central Pennsylvania, moved back to Central Pennsylvania because it's where I wanted to start my family, and I did start my family, but I'm running for Congress because I think that so much of what I care about as an American, healthcare most especially, is under attack right now. I think that we are in a time of increasing polarization, primarily because people have not learned how to talk to people who disagree with them. A lot of the small d democratic institutions that we rely upon, Elks Clubs and Moose Clubs, even jury duty, churches, bowling leagues, a lot of those institutions are breaking down. People don't know how to talk to each other anymore. I think if we start from the bottom and move up, I think you'll get civility in Washington then.
Last question. What is your stance on our healthcare crisis in the United States at this point? No, I will not. I will only ask you, what is your opinion on the healthcare crisis in the United States at this time?
The healthcare crisis is the most important issue in the campaign. It's the reason that I'm running, and I decided to run last year after the House voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act with having absolutely no alternative in mind. This is legislation that did so much good for this district. I realize that it wasn't always at least popular to say that, but especially with the Medicaid dollars that flowed into Pennsylvania and into this district, it did so much good. And no matter how many protests we organized and postcards we wrote and letters to the editor that we wrote, some congressmen will never change their mind. And that's why I decided to run. The Affordable Care Act was a huge step in the right direction, and I think that we need to protect that. We need to make sure that we protect coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. But I think this is a moment. I think we're in a time right now where we can go further and move to a Medicare for all system, and maybe I'll reserve some of my summation time to describe why I think that's a good idea. All done with questions?
That's 4 questions, yes.
Okay, great. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about Medicare for All. Medicare for All is a system that takes what is already working really, really well. Most older Americans who are on Medicare are incredibly satisfied with the system. Has 3% overhead compared to the for-profit insurance system that has around 31% overhead, both for profit and then for claims administration and denying a lot of claims that people have. And expanding it to cover every American citizen and to cover primary care, of course, but to also expand the types of coverage to include dental and vision and mental health as well. And we have shortages of providers in all 3 of those areas, and that's a really important issue that we need to tackle as well, and I'll try to get back to that in a moment. But Medicare for All is going to present significant savings for us as a country, that we are losing so much by paying the middleman, essentially, for-profit insurance companies. You know, we're the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and it is an embarrassment to stand before you as an American in a country where so many people go into bankruptcy because of medical debt. To stand before you where people are dying because they can't get the kind of care that they need just because they can't afford it. We're Americans. We take care of each other. And it's outrageous. And I think that we're in a time where the political will is there, and I think it's quickly forming. People are realizing that it makes sense for a whole lot of different reasons to look at Medicare for All. You know, just earlier this evening, I was speaking with a physical therapist who was talking about trying to get people to join his staff, and he was saying that a lot of them would ask, you know, what kind of benefits do you offer? Do you offer health care? And, you know, even in health care, he couldn't offer health care. He couldn't afford it. I think this is going to be huge for small businesses. It's going to be huge for farmers. If you're worried about health care, Medicare for All is a way of saying you're covered. And we pay for it with payroll taxes like we do. We pay for other government programs, but it's a safety net. It's a way of saying that everybody is going to get the kind of coverage that they need when they need it. And it is going to free up, you know, employers so that small businesses are going to be able to hire more. It's going to free up employees so that they can do the kind of work that they want to do, or if they want to start up their own small businesses. Who knows how many small businesses were never formed and could have grown into big businesses that helped Mifflin County because people stayed in a job where they had health care. It's really strange in this country. We're outliers compared to the rest of the world, how we have this link between employment status and health care, and I think that is, it's time for that to change. I'll say a few words maybe about tariffs. You know, we're involved in a trade war now that has no logical stopping point, and farmers are caught in the line of fire, and I know that a lot of farmers that I talk to are feeling the consequences of steel tariffs, and I don't know where it's going to stop, and I don't know why we started this. I know that everybody wants fair trade. Nobody wants a handout. Nobody wants aid. They want fair trade, and I think we can do that without getting involved in a trade war. They are not good, and they are not easy to win, and I think we are learning that. I also want to talk about climate change and the environment. I know farmers feel this, on a first-hand basis, that we know that the climate is changing. Scientists are unanimous that that is caused by man's activities. The UN report, which recently came out, tells us that we have only a small handful of years to make meaningful changes to prevent runaway climate change effects that will cause hundreds of billions of dollars of damages, that will see parts of lower Manhattan and Miami and other American cities be flooded. We lost fighter jets in Hurricane Michael, for the first time in a long time. We lost American fighter jets. But we have an opportunity to make sure that central Pennsylvania remains beautiful, to make sure that we have green jobs and green energy, fight climate change, and also improve our economy. And I'm looking forward to doing that and making incentives to do that possible in Congress. My name is Mark Friedenberg. Thank you so much for your time.
We'll now move on to the 34th Senatorial District, and I remind you that we have a lot of time for 8 questions, so if you have any questions, bring them forward. At this time, I'll ask those candidates to come to the stage.
Frank, thank you. Shall I take the podium?
You may.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's truly an honor to be here. Thank you to the Mifflin County Farm Bureau for hosting this important forum, and thank you to all of you for coming out to get to know your candidates. My name is Ezra Naines, and I am proud to be your Democratic candidate for State Senate. I've spent a year listening to people across all 4 counties of our district, and people are sick and tired of career politicians who say one thing and do another, who pass the buck and walk away from the problems that we really need to solve. Our communities have been forgotten and left behind, and we must bring commitment, hard work, and integrity back to Harrisburg. We need representatives who respect and value our traditions and who have the vision to lead us forward. I'm a businessman, a family man, an active member of our community, and I stepped up to run because the only way that we change Harrisburg is to change the people we send there. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jake Corman, your state senator. It's a pleasure to be here with the Farm Bureau again. I always enjoy spending time with the Farm Bureau. I want to thank my wife, Kelly, and son, Davis, for joining me here tonight. I've enjoyed my years in partnering with the communities of the Juniata Valley, Mifflin, and Juniata County, and addressing problems and solving concerns that all communities have as we grow over a period of time. We've been able to get to a lot of them. We've had a lot of accomplishments over the years, and look forward to talking to them over the next couple minutes. But one of the things that I'm probably most proud of is I've been able to achieve the leadership role as majority leader in the state Senate. And that enables me to really be at the table when big decisions are being made, and also allows me the ability to help my communities, which I represent, which again I will discuss as we move on tonight. But the thing that we're probably most proud of, as me and Representative Benninghoff and others, is we've been able to avoid tax increases. We've been able to avoid across-the-board tax increases while we're dealing with the governor's asked for billions and billions of dollars of tax increases. And we balanced the budget at the same time. So we'll be happy to look forward to your questions and talk about more of these issues as we go on. Thank you.
First question goes to Ezra. Tell us your plan, how you would bring broadband internet access to this district.
Absolutely, thank you. Great question. Oh, there we go. Okay. There is a lot of struggle out there in our communities. Where businesses are struggling, people are not finding work, and we need to help our small towns and our rural communities connect with opportunity. That means that small businesses are able to access markets. That means that seniors are able to access telemedicine. Children access educational opportunities. Broadband internet access has become as essential as electricity, and we must make sure that our small towns and rural communities have this essential service. One of the fundamental parts of my plan to bring new hope to our small towns and rural communities that are struggling is to stand up and champion broadband internet access for our entire state. There are ways to fund this. It has to be a priority for us. One way that we might fund it is through making oil and gas companies who reap a lot of profits from our state pay a shale gas severance tax, pay their fair share. So, top priority for me.
I had the opportunity to author the Chapter 30 legislation earlier in my career that began the deployment of broadband throughout Pennsylvania. worked with a lot of the industry to make this happen, and a big component of that legislation was to make sure that all our school districts had access. And then that communities that the companies didn't want to come to had the ability to band together, with a lack of a better term, to create a demand so that the companies would then come and deploy broadband to those areas. So it's an area that I've been involved in for quite a bit of time, and will continue to be, because it's so important to rural Pennsylvania. Whether you're a physician that may be in a rural area that needs access, whether you be a farmer that needs access, whatever it may be, we all need access to the internet now and to broadband. So, at the end of the day, it's going to take closing that gap. The industry, cable is not regulated, and so therefore they don't have a demand like someone else might be, like the telephone companies would be, that we could force them to do it. So we need to work with them to close that gap to make sure that all have an opportunity to access broadband, because it's so essential to the economic development of our community.
Next question. Since you are sitting in a public school, what is your opinion of school safety, since you are sitting in a school tonight? Sure.
Great question. I have 3 children in public school, and so there's probably no greater question than that one for me, is personally. When we all watch the activities that happened in Parkland earlier in the year, it's horrifying as a parent, as a community member. And so we acted in the Senate this year, and we put together and found room in the budget without raising taxes, because budgets are about priorities, and this was a priority. And so we were able to find $60 million of grants for our school districts to begin the process. That's not the end. We're going to do this every year and probably grow it over a period of time. But to begin the process to allow school districts to do the assessments of each school. Every school is different, whether you're in rural Pennsylvania like we are, whether it's suburban or urban, they're all different. And so the state doesn't need to come in with a one-size-fits-all plan. What we need to do is support our local school districts so they can develop a safety procedure for each school. And so we provided the dollars. Again, it is a priority without raising taxes, and we'll continue to do so in the future.
This is also very personal for me. My wife, Mika, who's here with me tonight, and I have 2 wonderful children of 6 and 8 who attend public school, and I can tell you when we go to that school bus in the morning, this is always on our minds. We need to address the root causes of violence, and that means having adequate care for mental health in our schools. And with the lowest state level of contribution to public education, in one of the lowest levels in the country, our schools are struggling to staff people to help with things like mental health. We need to fully and fairly fund our public schools. This is fundamental to the success and prosperity in our communities. And school safety is incredibly important. I support having police presence, but I don't want to put guns in our schools. And Senator Corman and I disagree on this. He voted to allow school districts to arm teachers, and I do not think that's a good idea. And law enforcement and teachers oppose that idea. So we need to be smart about this. We need to fund mental health and get to the root causes of violence so that we can avoid it in the future. Thank you.
Next question. What is your position on the state prevailing wages?
Absolutely. It's very important that we support our working families, our working men and women, and their right to organize. And so I support the prevailing wage, because that's important. We can't have wages being cut in certain markets. It's very important. Working families in our state are struggling to make ends meet on one of the lowest minimum wages of any state in the region. So that's an important piece of legislation, and it's important that we raise the minimum wage as well. We cannot have families that are working and not able to pay their bills, not able to afford health care, not able to pay for essentials. So, this is a problem that we see across this district, is that families are struggling to access the things that they need. And absolutely, that's an important thing. Yeah, thank you.
I've been, been in my time in the legislature, this issue's come up a lot. There's never been enough votes to repeal the prevailing wage, so I don't think that's an issue that's going to happen at any time in the near future. One of the things I would like to see us address is there's an exemption at a certain dollar amount, and that hasn't grown because a lot of times little projects, give me an example, under Governor Rendell, they expanded the prevailing wage to liquid fuels dollars, which really cramped the local municipalities and the ability to maintain their roads. It shrunk the ability, the amount of miles of roads that they could do because of the cost of each project. So I think there should be an exemption in place for smaller projects, but I think the prevailing wage in Pennsylvania doesn't have the votes and hasn't had it to repeal it. So I wouldn't think that will happen anywhere in the near future. But we should look at an exemption for real-time costs.
Next question. What will you do to help reduce the rising cost of higher education, such as our four-year schools and our technical schools, that the cost is totally spinning out of control?
Great question. One of the, I think, greatest assets we have in Pennsylvania is our higher education institutions. We have a plethora of them, from smaller ones to larger ones to private to public. And it's important to have a public higher education system. Penn State University is the flagship university, and it needs to be an education for the masses, not for the elite. And so it's important that we fund it at the state level. It's important that we help try to offset some of those tuition costs, particularly for in-state residents. I was proud that they awarded me with the Distinguished Alumni Award this year because of my advocacy in the legislature on behalf of higher education. This year we were able to support them at the level both for their reimbursement plus the infrastructure costs to the point where they did not raise tuition this year. And that's the first big step to keeping debt down, is to not have tuition being raised. And over the last few years, we've been able to keep tuition at a modest increase, and this year was exciting that they didn't raise it at all. So we need to support our public universities, and the way we do that is through the budgetary process. And again, we did that again this year without raising taxes.
Well, Pennsylvania has the highest average student debt for higher education in the entire nation. That's a sad statistic for us. It causes a lot of people to come out of college and university with debt that prevents them from perhaps starting a family or a business. I think the first step we need to take is to make sure that everybody we have representing us in Harrisburg makes this a number one priority. For me, in my campaign, education, public education, access to pre-K all the way through high school, vocational training, and higher ed. This is my number one priority because it is the foundation of opportunity in our state. There are many ways that we can raise the revenue. I mentioned one of them already, but I want you to know that I'm committed to making sure that our in-state students have access to our universities. I'm a proud Penn State alum as well, and my life has benefited greatly from attending that fine university, and I've been an active alumni. So when I get to Harrisburg, you know you have a vote, and we need to make sure that our budgets are on time as well, because those late budgets also hurt our universities and schools that are depending on those funds.
For questions, your summation.
Okay. Yes, Jake. Thank you.
Thank you again for everybody for coming out. Okay. It's a pleasure to be here, always a pleasure to be with the Farm Bureau, and thank you for your public service of setting up this event. As I said at the top, I've enjoyed my partnership in my time in the legislature, working with this community and all the communities within the Juniata Valley. Jobs are obviously one of the most important things that we need in a good community, and I was proud years ago putting a project together and bringing about $1.5 million to purchase the land so that we could open up the First Quality site, a new plant in Granville Township. Now there's 2 plants there, and they employ over 600 people, and they made mention last night that they're going to employ 100 more. I was proud to help the Juniata Business and Industry, their industrial park, had a great problem. They were built out. They didn't have any more room, and so I was able to acquire a couple $1 million to help them purchase more land and increase that industrial park to provide jobs here in the Juniata Valley. Agriculture, obviously a huge issue. We're here with the Farm Bureau folks. When the governor, Wolf, tried to cut $8 million worth of agriculture budget lines, we stood up and said no in the legislature. We wouldn't do that. And whether it was Republican governors or Democrat governors, the legislature said no, we're not going to do that. We're going to support things like ag extension. Dairy is obviously a huge issue for agriculture. I've called on whoever wins this governor's race to have a dairy summit like they did in New York, where every department head and every state agency comes together for a summit to talk about how do we improve the dairy industry, because it's such an important industry here in Pennsylvania that we need to step up for the dairy industry as some economic development people have stepped up for other industries. And so we need to make that happen and increase that demand. We obviously have lots of supply, but we need demand so the milk prices go up. And so agriculture has obviously been a huge part of my focus. Infrastructure. One of the major, the number one initiatives for the chamber here locally is to finish 322 into State College. We're on our way. Potter's Mills interchange is being funded now, thanks to, we were able to get funding through Barry Shook, the former Secretary of Transportation. That'll be done at the end of next year. We're in phase 3 of that project, and I promise you, we're going to finish that the rest of the way, as that's been, like I said, one of the number one priorities for the local chamber as far as infrastructure. And healthcare. Obviously, healthcare is a huge issue. When the Lewistown Hospital was in a sensitive area, I was able to work with them and the Attorney General's office to make sure that the relationship with Geisinger was cemented to give stability to the hospital. We were able to secure $3 million to expand the emergency room services there at the hospital. We were also able to secure some dollars to help get a primary health network here to help with the healthcare needs of this community. These are the areas that I like participating in because it helps with the quality of life of the communities I represent. I enjoy doing it, and we've been able to do all that, again, without raising taxes. Again, as majority leader, it puts me in a spot to be able to do some of these things. That's why I'm running again for re-election, because I'm in a spot to be the most helpful to this community. So I've enjoyed your support. My wife and family have always been supported very well in this community. It's been a great relationship, and I'm looking forward to future endeavors as we work together to improve the lives of the people here in the Juniata Valley. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you again, everybody. Truly honored to be here with you. Just one note on the taxes. Senator Corman may not want to raise taxes, may say he's trying to fight against that, but your property taxes are going up because our public schools have been underfunded by Harrisburg. Don't forget that. That's something I want to work on. As a farmer, you can't walk away from the farm and expect it to keep running. You do the work until the job is done. And that takes commitment and hard work and integrity. Because when you say you're going to do something, you do it. And when you put the work in, you should get something back for it. You reap what you sow. And that's how things should be in Harrisburg, but they're not. The influence of lobbyists and special interests who have power over our politicians is causing them to make bad decisions that hurt you. And Jay Corman accepts large sums of money from industry PACs, and it does influence his decisions. A week ago, Jay Corman walked away from his job. Look at Senate Bill 261, the window to justice. This is a bill with broad bipartisan support. We need bills like that overwhelmingly pass the House, a bill that would have given victims of child sex abuse their day in court. These are people for whom the law has failed them because they have aged out of the statute of limitations. And it would have opened a civil window to justice, but it was strongly opposed by the insurance lobby and the Catholic Church lobby. And Senator Corman allowed this bill to die in committee, the Rules Committee of the State Senate. The bill should have passed, but it never saw a vote. If you're not fighting for the victims of child sex abuse, who are you fighting for? I'll tell you. Jay Corman took hundreds of thousands of dollars from insurance companies for his campaigns, and it's all there in his campaign finance reports. We need to end the influence of lobbyists and special interest money over our politicians. This is my home. I'm a family man. My amazing wife, Mika, is here with me tonight. I'm a businessman with more than 20 years of experience. I'm a proud Penn Stater, and I'm an active member of our community. And I stepped up to run because we can no longer allow the division and the dysfunction to hold us back from our potential. I am proud to have run a grassroots campaign. No lobbyists, no special interests, no conflicts of interest, just real people making a real difference. And if you want to know what I am all about, just look at the campaign that I've run. I've spent the past year listening to you, visiting your farms, meeting you at the county fair, engaging with you on the issues at town halls, and knocking on your doors. Because you are a part of this community that I value. My kids have goldfish from all 4 counties of this district because of the county fairs. And my wife and I have been buying food direct from farms in Mifflin and Juniata counties for the best part of a decade. And that has been such a blessing for our family. I am so excited for what lies ahead. We can have a great public school in every community. We can drive our economy forward and protect this beautiful place that we call home by aggressively pursuing and investing in our renewable energy industry. We can lower the cost of health care and protect people with pre-existing conditions. And we can give new hope to our small towns and rural communities by valuing our traditions, respecting them, but investing in the opportunities of our future. We've worked hard to bring people together around a shared vision, a vision for the future that we all desperately need. I will serve you with commitment, with hard work, and with integrity, because that is what you have told me time and again, Republicans, Democrats, independents, libertarians, that is what you want, and that is who I am. I ask you now for your vote. Vote your heart, vote your conscience, vote your future. It will be the honor of my lifetime to serve you. Thank you very much.
We're going to move on to the 81st Legislative District. If Rick Rogers has arrived, I would call him forward also. He wasn't here for orientation. You're on, Rich.
Good evening. My name is Rich Irvin. I'm currently the state representative of the 81st District, which serves the very western portion of Mifflin County. I cover the township of Wayne, Newton Hamilton, and Kistler boroughs. It has been a pleasure of mine to serve as the state representative of Huntington Center and Mifflin counties for the last 4 years. I truly do enjoy my job, meeting a diverse group of people and trying to take the principles and the conservative values of the majority of my district to Harrisburg. I must say that I am a pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, and pro-growth legislator. The decisions I make in Harrisburg are based upon the fact that I have my family at home, ranging from the ages of 20 years old in Penn Tech College to kindergarten, and I want to make sure that they can live and work right here in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
First question, Mr. Irvin. How do you plan to protect our public schools against tax cuts without raising property taxes, especially if either of you, if you do support it, the fair funding formula?
Currently, over the past 4 years since I've been in office, the General Assembly has increased public education funding by over $1 billion, and we're pushing that money out in the new funding formula that was devised by the Funding Formula Commission. Right now, currently, your schools, whether they have a declining population or they have an increasing population, or student population, they're under the Hold Harmless plan, where they're going to continue to get no less money than they got the previous year. The new funding formula actually tries to spread that funding out a little bit more evenly through the school districts that are having an increase in population. Property tax are probably one of the most hated taxes that are out there, but one thing that I have done in the past, I have supported property tax reform, and I will look for ways to relieve the homeowners and property owners of that dreaded property tax. Thank you.
Next question. Would you or would you not support a window of justice for sexual abused victims?
I have voted in the past for a 2-year window for sexual assault victims to come back on their perpetrators. That did pass out of the House in that particular form. But the one thing I must say, it is a heinous crime that was happened to any children. But the last thing I think that we really want to do is bankrupt, say, the Catholic Church. So I think if there's a way that we can increase the statute of limitations and then also make sure that we're giving that window for them to go back and go after their perpetrator, that is a step forward that we can move. But like I said, there's no way that the people that are sitting in the current boards on whether it's be a school district, a college, or the church where this has happened, they're the ones who are going to be paying the price for it. The same thing that happened with Jerry Sandusky in the Penn State. Thank you.
Next question. If you could draft a bill to be passed into law or sign on to an existing bill, what would it be?
Well, I've signed on to quite a few bills over the number of years that I've been in Harrisburg. And, property tax reform has been probably top on the list, but I look at reducing the corporate tax rate. I think that is a very important way that we can do what we can do to try to draw family-sustaining jobs into Pennsylvania. I think another thing that we need to do is make sure that businesses can actually recognize the full amount of their operating losses so that they can turn that around and invest that back into Pennsylvania and back into creating new jobs. Like I said, I think that probably the biggest reason that the main reason that I actually ran for state representative is because I want to go to Harrisburg, and my top priority is creating family-sustaining jobs so that our kids don't have to move out of state in order to support their family. They can do it right here in Pennsylvania.
Fourth and final question. Please explain your plan to bring renewable and sustainable energy to our district.
I know right now the federal government, I think, just approved the fact that we can up our ethanol in the gasoline from 10% to 15%. And I know farmers right now, the dairy industry, are very much having a hard time staying afloat. So one thing about the ethanol, if it's created from the corn, we can actually, help maybe bring some renewable energy that direction. Right now, I think renewable energy is important. We need to continue to move in that direction, but right now there is not enough clean, renewable energy in Pennsylvania or the United States to meet our energy needs. So we're going to have to continue to have the researchers at whether Penn State University or anywhere in the United States to make sure that they can continue to develop that technology to make it a lot more efficient so that we do not have to rely on fossil fuels as much.
Time for your summation.
Summation, because I have the smallest portion of Mifflin County. I'll try to keep my summation rather short. I've gone to Harrisburg with the opinion that I think that we need less government control, less government for our regulations for our dairy farmers as they're trying to struggle through the dairy crisis. They need to diversify. They're going to actually need to be able to expand out into other various aspects of farming, whether it be agritourism, whether it be CAFO farming, whether it be any kind of crop farming or different, high tunnels for greenhouses or anything of that nature. And we at the state level need to make sure that we are not getting in the way by adding these additional regulations. Right now, if a farmer would sell his cows today, it would probably take him 6 months to a year to have the proper permitting done in order to get into a new venture. One thing that we've just done in Harrisburg is actually try to remove some of the liability for farmers if someone would come on your property and get hurt. That is taken away. So I think that that's one thing that'll definitely benefit the farmers whenever it comes to agribusiness. I think holding the line on taxes is very important. Senator Corman mentioned that, and we need to continue to fight the tax increases that is going on, that the governor is trying to push in Pennsylvania right now. If we would have actually met all that the governor's tax increases, we'd be looking at over $12 billion additional dollars that would be coming out of your pocket, be coming out of businesses' pocket, and they would not be putting that into creating family-sustaining jobs. Whenever we have the federal government that is moving in a direction that's trying to increase our economy, having it jump-started, we need to take advantage of that at the state level. We need to make sure that we are making Pennsylvania just as economically beneficial and friendly as well by reducing some taxes and making sure that we are attracting businesses here instead of chasing them out of our state. And I think the last thing that's very important to me is keeping government at the most local level. I think we live in a commonwealth, and our government goes down to the township and borough levels, and those are the people who actually understand what the needs of their local or who they're representing most, and they should have the ultimate say in most of the issues that are coming before them. Although I think the state does have a responsibility in handling the regional matters, like making sure that we are trying to reduce our state debt, trying to make sure that we get our pension costs under control, funding our pension system, and making sure that we are able to, continue with our religious freedoms right here in Pennsylvania and make sure that we move in a positive direction. I thank you very much for the Farm Bureau for having me tonight. It was a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to coming back again, and I ask everyone for the support to serve you as in the capacity of your state representative in Mifflin County. Thank you very much.
I'll now call on the candidates to be a representative in the 82nd Legislative District. Elizabeth Book, John Hershey, would you come forward, please?
Should I stay up here since I'm going first? Should I stay up here to do my introduction? Hi, I'm Elizabeth Book, and I'm running for state representative for the 82nd District. I'm running as an independent, and I really appreciate the Farm Bureau for having this tonight, and I appreciate all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and talk about issues that are important to Pennsylvanians. I really appreciate that you guys did this, and this is exactly what I want to do as state representative. I want to have monthly town hall meetings in the different fire companies across the district. We need a representative who is engaged and talk with constituents, talking about issues on a regular basis. We need a representative who believes in transparency, someone who is talking about what's going on in Harrisburg or what is not getting done in Harrisburg. And, I'm going to have monthly town hall meetings to talk about those issues. And I'm also going to continue to go to McDonald's in the morning and meet with the people who are in there having breakfast. And I'm going to continue to meet with the people who go to the Moose after work and just having conversations with people in the gas station while they're eating hot dogs. That's what we need in a representative, and I'm looking forward to serving the 82nd District. Thank you.
So I just wanted to thank the Farm Bureau for having us here tonight, and thanks for putting on this forum that can educate you on what the candidates believe and what their views are. By way of background, my name is John Hershey, and I'm running to represent the 82nd District, which stretches from here, we're in that right now, all the way down to Chambersburg. And I have worked for a U.S. Congressman for the past few years, handling ag for him, and certainly hopefully some of our changes that I've been able to work on will be in this next farm bill that we're hoping to see pass. So as I've been traveling the 82nd District here, all the way down to Chambersburg, what I've heard most is that people are looking for a voice. They want to feel like they have a voice in state government, and they want to feel like their voice is heard. At the end of the day, what I can promise you is that even where we disagree, I'll be willing to be your voice in Harrisburg. I would love nothing more than to serve my home community here at the state level, and just thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
First question, Ms. Buck. What experience do you have that will help you from day one in this legislation?
Oh, well, I have a ton of experience living on a budget. I have mostly been a stay-at-home mom for the past 8 years. I know what it's like to take care of newborns. I know what it's like to get a $300 doctor's bill for strep throat and worry about how we're going to pay for it. My husband is a forester for DCNR. You can Google his salary. That's what we've been living on for the past 8 years. That has given me a lot of experience and what is important to families in our district, what families in our district need. My husband and I pay a mortgage, we pay property taxes, and in addition to real life experiences, I also have a master's degree and a bachelor's in history and sociology.
I appreciate that question. That's probably one I've gotten a few times, as if you haven't seen, I'm one of the youngest candidates in this cycle this time around here. And as a 25-year-old, I will end up being one of the youngest state legislators if I am to be elected. I've had the fortune of working for a congressman for the past 2 years, handling ag and state and foreign development for him. I have written legislation that's made it into bills. Whether it's this upcoming farm bill or whether it's changes to annual appropriations bills and things like that. I have experience that delivering money to the 15th Congressional District of Pennsylvania, which is the area that I was serving, and I would love to hit the ground running on day one with those experiences I've been fortunate to have.
Second question, Mr. Hershey. Tell us your plan to bring broadband internet access to our district.
Yeah, that's, as some of the candidates have already discussed, I do think that that's one of the most important issues facing us today. You know, we always talk about quality jobs and quality education, and we do need to attract businesses to this area. And I think that's one of the things that will help them do that. And as farming gets more technical, as other professions get more technical, we need that access as well. So that is one of the most important things, and one of the things I would like to address on day one entering the legislature. I think companies, need to be incentivized to be able to move here. Companies make decisions based on a win-loss profit basis, and we need to make this an attractive area for them to be able to develop their own internet and broadband capabilities as well. And I think that rising tide would lift all boats for people in our district.
I agree. I've talked to many farmers who tell me that if they had better technology, if they had access to it, that they would be much more productive. I also know as a mother, it is sometimes frustrating. I live way out in the country, and it is frustrating. We are behind in technology compared to children who live in towns and cities, and it would be a great benefit to our children. So.
Ms. Buck, what is your position on prevailing wages in the state?
Okay, so I come from a very strong working class background, and I'm going to talk about that in my closing. I care very much about people who work at Walmart, who have the minimum wage jobs. I know what it's like. I am concerned if we raise the minimum wage, if we would have to pay teachers more, we would have to pay other people more. I'm just being honest here. I haven't been convinced that raising the minimum wage is going to help families with working class parents. I think there's something else that needs to be done in addition to that.
I'm not a fan of prevailing wage for public jobs. I think oftentimes a lot of, I do share people's concerns about people being paid fairly and things like that. But oftentimes what happens is companies then, if you're paying prevailing wage to say build a school or build, make adjustments to the Capitol building or building roads or something like that. Unfortunately, then a lot of our local businesses and companies aren't able to compete with that wage. Then what happens is we have a lot of local talent that we should be developing that ends up moving out of the area to take jobs in Harrisburg or other places where they can get some kind of public assistance for that position. So I am not a fan of prevailing wage as it exists now.
Fourth and final question. What is your position on gun control?
It's a good question. President Obama might have said it best when we Central Pennsylvanians like to cling to our guns and religion. I am fortunate to have been brought up in a home that owns guns and knows how to use them. And the NRA taught me in a gun safety course at a young age, and I was taught to use guns safely at a young age. And oftentimes I don't think that we look at the underlying problems, whether they're mental health issues and things like that, toward gun control. So I've been fortunate to have been endorsed by the NRA for my campaign and by the Firearm Owners Against Crime, and I certainly have a huge desire and plan to protect people's right to own a firearm and protect their Second Amendment rights when I reach the legislature.
I don't think President Obama said it best. I don't think he understood people in Central Pennsylvania. It's come out a couple years ago. I wrote a letter to the Lewistown Sentinel arguing for gun control. This past year, I have done extensive research on the number of gun laws that we actually have in Pennsylvania. I don't use guns myself. My husband does. He grew up with them. We live on a farm. He grew up hunting. He butchers himself. He carries. We have guns in our house. It's not my thing. And I grew up not understanding actually what the Second Amendment is about. I'm being honest. This past year, I have done a lot of research, and I get that it's about personal protection. I get that it's about defending yourself. And we do not need any additional laws in Pennsylvania.
Is that closing then? Okay. Yep. So by way of quick clarification, I was saying that facetiously. I, of course, am proud of my guns and religion here in the Juniata Valley, and was not praising a former president in that way. So, in summation, I already mentioned that as I traveled the 82nd District from here and up in Meadow Township down to Chambersburg and everywhere in between, people are looking for a voice in their state legislature. They want their legislator to be present. They want them to be available for questions. They want to be able to disagree with their state legislator without feeling that they're getting shut down. I'm willing to do that for you, whether we agree or disagree on issues. I do come at things from a more conservative perspective, but I'm always willing to listen to you and hear you out and hear about your concerns and what you believe make the 82nd District a better place. When I talk to people, a lot of people have the same concerns. They want our schools to be safe. They want to provide their children a quality education, whether that's at a public school or a private school. They want to have rights to keep their guns and to protect their Second Amendment rights. I believe that that's something that's important. They want to see broadband expanded to the area, and people want to have access to workforce development. If you talk to private businesses, they're struggling to find the workers right now, and if you talk to younger kids just getting out of high school and searching for something to do, they want a place to go where they can be developed and learn a trade and find a good paying, quality, fulfilling job. These are things that will be my priority when I reach the legislature, and they're priorities that I believe that we all, Republican or Democrat, can get behind. So November 6th is the day. It's coming up fast, and I would love nothing more than to earn your vote when that time comes around. Thank you.
I have been very blessed to have had this opportunity to run, and I will be very grateful if I get the opportunity to serve the 82nd District as state representative. My winning will send a message. It will send a strong message on several things. It will send a strong message that we need to change how we run elections, starting with how much elections cost. I did my treasury report this past week with my treasurer and another supporter, and my supporters and I have run my campaign on less than $3,000, and that is incredible. There have been so many people who have told me that it takes $40,000, $50,000 to win an election, and I disagree. I think elections have gotten ridiculous. I think the amount of money that has been spent on campaigns is ridiculous, especially when you consider the 82nd District, which is a district that Juniata County School District shut down a school, or is shutting down a school after Christmas, an elementary school, because of the cost of fixing a boiler. That's $45,000. 5-year-olds are going to have to ride a school bus from Waterloo all the way into Mifflintown. Probably a 2-hour bus ride, $45,000. There are so many other things in our community that could use the money, like our libraries, our fire companies, our schools. And I am very proud of my team. I am very proud of how hard we have worked to have run a campaign on less than $3,000. And also, my winning will send a strong message that campaigns are supposed to be about going out and meeting people, about knocking on doors, about talking to people about issues. It's not supposed to be about who has the most money or the most connections or getting donations from lobbyists. It's supposed to be about going out and talking to people about issues. I'm not a typical politician. I live on the farm that my husband grew up on. I'm not always the most polished, and I come from a very strong working class background. My family has gone from my grandfather, who had to drop out of school in the 8th grade to work in the paper mill to help support his family. He's still kicking at 81. He struggles to read and write. We've gone from my grandfather to my father, who became the first person in the entire Rhodes family to graduate from high school in 1975, to me, who went to the University of Pittsburgh on an academic scholarship and earned a master's degree and is now running for state representative. That's awesome. That's what America is about. And I am very lucky to live here. I am very grateful for having this opportunity. I am very proud for my family's progression through the generations, and I am just very grateful for this. This is what America is about. My winning will send a message that we need representatives who actually say what they mean. I say I'm going to have monthly town hall meetings. That's what I mean. I'm going to be out talking to constituents on a monthly basis, not just right before elections, but every month for my 2-year term. I'm going to have town hall meetings. I very much appreciate your consideration on November 6th, and whatever the results are, I have been very grateful for having had this opportunity. So thank you very much.
We'll now hear from the candidates for the 171st Legislative District. Kerry wasn't here but he has arrived. He wasn't here for orientation. Kerry and Aaron, come forward, please.
Can I start, right? Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Erin McCracken. I'm running for state representative of the 171st District. I am a small business owner in Milheim, Pennsylvania. I am a caterer and an event planner. And a big part of what we do is completely dependent on our local agriculture. I have a few questions for you because I have to tell you, I'd rather have a face-to-face conversation. I get really nervous in this kind of forum. How many of you are farmers out there? Can you raise your hand? Can you do it again? How many of you have second jobs off the farm? And how many of you feel more financially secure than you did 22 years ago? Thank you. I look around the district and I see we're surrounded by farms. It's so much of who we are. And I am committed to making sure that 10 or 20 years from now that's still the case. I want to work for that. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kerry Benninghoff. Appreciate the Farm Bureau putting this forum together again this year. I bring you greetings from my family as well. I am honored to be serving you in the state legislature. I apologize I couldn't be here but a little bit before 7. I was actually dealing with a constituent whose mother was scammed several times. Just one of many issues that we deal with as legislators. I've been honored to meet many of you within your homes, at your farms, here at the 4-H fair that occurs. And I tell people, especially young group individuals, when I come in their classrooms, think about what you use on a day-to-day basis. Everything we use is either grown by a farmer or mined out of the ground. Name one thing that doesn't. As a legislature, I take those types of viewpoints to Harrisburg. Some of you know I used to serve as county coroner, but prior to that, I served in a hospital. I built houses, did a lot of construction, a lot of remodeling. I tried to be a hands-on, common-sense legislator. I fought against things I thought were wrong, stood up for things that I thought was right, and I'm willing to continue to do that. I look forward to discussion and dialogue. It's truly been my honor serving you in these last few years. Thank you very much.
Ms. McCracken, first question. This never gets old, so what is your position on gun control?
Well, my first position on gun control is that I don't believe that the NRA defines what the Second Amendment is. I believe that I grew up with guns. Like, my dad stored his hunting rifles in my closet. We were a hunting family. I was around guns. I was never allowed to go to hunting camp, which was annoying as a girl. But I think the issues are deeper than what guns we have. In my community, I have friends that have AR-15s. They're recreational guns, and they have them, and they keep them safe. I don't like those type of guns, but there they are. They're in our community, so the question is, what do we do now? And I think it is we deal with the root causes, domestic violence. We deal with mental health services. We make sure we have those available to people so that we can stop violence before it starts.
Can you restate the question, please?
What is your position on gun control?
Thank you. Obviously, I think that the state and the national government has a lot of laws governing that. The question really needs to be, what do you believe about the Second Amendment? Second Amendment gives all free Americans the ability to protect themselves. And really, it's about protecting ourselves against tyranny of your own country. It's what we were founded on. If you fundamentally believe in your Constitution, then you have to believe in the Second Amendment. I believe that we have common sense laws, and we have ways to make sure that those individuals who break those laws are dealt with. And I think it's important that we protect those freedoms. I too come from a hunting family, but the Second Amendment is not about hunting. It's about having the freedom to protect yourself as a country. And I think that we need to be punishing those that do the wrong things and allowing free Americans the liberties to live their life and protect their families.
Second question. Would you or would you not support a window of justice for sexual abuse victims?
I would support that, and I have supported and voted for it. I think children sexually abused, anybody sexually abused, regardless of age, should have their day in court, and the perpetrators should be brought to justice when possible.
I agree. Absolutely, and this is an opportunity that we have to really hold people accountable for the crimes that they've committed. When we talk about crime in this country, these are the crimes that I think of that are most egregious and most problematic in our state. I think it's an embarrassment what has happened, and those that they need to be held responsible, and I of course support the window to justice.
Next question. If elected or as an elected legislator, would you support a bill that would allow random drug testing of a state elected official?
And I go first, right? I guess I would say sure, why not? I generally am against drug testing for employee-based things unless it's a health or a really major safety issue. I feel like it's a violation of privacy. But if these are people that we are paying and they are beholden to the people of their district or their state, and so it does feel like it's appropriate if that's what people want.
I don't think you should pass laws that you're not willing to be applied to yourself, but specifically, I think we need to have probable cause, as we do in other cases, if somebody shows reason that they should be drug tested, just as we do in most other professions. I don't think the legislature necessarily should be exempt from that.
Fourth and final question. What is your position on the prevailing wages of the state of Pennsylvania?
I think Senator Corder touched on this, but the reality is prevailing wage rates have not been adjusted for a long time. Many of our local municipalities struggle to get even the smallest of projects done because anything over $25,000, they have to go to prevailing wage. Many simple box culvert bridges that were replaced in the old days by some of our friends and families and neighbors who work for the township now have to go out and be done at 1/3 extra cost. These schools that we want, we all talk about having a great environment for our children, having great stadiums and schools. They cost a lot of money to build, millions, tens of millions of dollars. Well, prevailing wage costs, because they are not set regionally, are based on prevailing wage rates in the city of Philadelphia, the highest prevailing wage across the state. I don't think that's fair, and it surely isn't fair to you as taxpayers. Many of you have asked questions through the question and answering period about property taxes. This would be a fast way to try to adjust lower property taxes by adjusting prevailing wages on a regional level to be more reflective of your wage rates here in Center and Mifflin County.
I have heard from a number of people that work on public infrastructure projects that the prevailing wage is a challenge and that it would save a lot of money if it were adjusted. But I have a hard time cutting wages first. I feel like it is not always the solution, especially when I work so hard to make sure that people make a living wage. In Pennsylvania, the government and the people that it employs and the contracts that it makes, it has a responsibility to withhold or uphold the prevailing wage that it sets.
That was 4 questions. Mr. Benninghoff, yours up for a summation.
Podium.
There you go.
Again, thank you very much for having us. It has been my honor to serve you in the legislature. I've been known as to be a very independent voice on a lot of issues. I've taken on things that aren't necessarily popular, but issues that I feel very strongly about. But I've also tried to pass laws that help our communities. When I served as a finance chairman several years back, we passed laws to reduce the inheritance tax on small farms that want to pass it down through other families. And subsequently, several months later, we did something very similar for small businesses. I happen to be a big supporter of small business. I look at them as the blood life of our communities. We've all seen the devastation of what happens when large smokestack industries leave our communities all throughout the Virginia region, throughout Center County. It's hard to replace 600 jobs. And more importantly, we need to try to have a tax base that reflects this. Just recently, I served as a policy chairman, traveled across the state, did several different hearings on job creation, economic development, what makes Pennsylvania more competitive. When we were done with that, one of the things that we heard consistently is we need a better trained workforce, predominantly those in the areas of vocational technical training to help support engineers and some other industries. More importantly, we need people to have some soft skills, and additionally, we need people that can pass drug tests. It saddens me that we've had to find $30 million additionally in the last 3 budgets just to address the opioid addiction problem. These are preventable injuries and, more sadly, preventable deaths. Pennsylvania loses 14 people a day from opioid addiction. 14 people a day. That's 300 a month. It's a jumbo jet going down. That's silly. It's wrong. It shouldn't happen. And frankly, we're losing life that shouldn't have to be happening from premature deaths. I believe that people are healthy and happiest when they're working. And as a legislator, I fault to good business policies so that we have businesses that want to create jobs and move here in Pennsylvania. Phillips recently announced that they're moving jobs from another state right here to Mifflin County. Why are they doing that? 1, it's a beautiful region. 2, you got great resources. And 3, we have a quality workforce. I've always been proud to say I represent the 171st District in places like Mifflin County because I know the people. I've worked alongside of you, met with you, talked about a lot of difficult issues. I recently issued a commission to study. I've had the entire Pennsylvania tax codes evaluated to see what we can do better, what we are doing well, but most importantly, what we can do to be competitive as a state. I'm looking forward to whomever gets elected as governor to sit down with them so we can address this so Pennsylvania can continue to grow and be prosperous and truly be the keystone state amongst the northeastern part of the country. Pennsylvania's got quality infrastructures coming along. It's taken us a long time to get the funding there, but $3.2 billion is being raised because of the bills we had passed, which aren't always easy to do and they're not very popular, but they were the right thing to do. I may not be the best and the smartest on everything, but I've tried to give good service. I pride myself in giving good service when people come in the office. We help anybody, regardless of who they are, what political affiliation are, and I would be remiss to not say that I have wonderful staff. My office predominantly is run by Sue Burkholder on a full-time basis by herself and sometimes by Mark Long. God's blessed me with great people, great staff, and I would not be here without them. I'm honored by your friendships, the service you've given to me, and the fact that we can have differing ideas and still prosper our community. That's what you should expect. Elections are about hiring people. I'm asking you to be rehired for 2 years. I've enjoyed serving you. I've been honored and humbled to do that, and I look forward to doing it again for another 2 years. I also would like to close and thank my running mate here, because for the most part, we've kept things pretty straight and up. She's discussed issues, and I appreciate that and honor her for that. Thank you.
Again, my name is Erin McCracken. I'm running for state representative of the 171st District. I'm a business owner along with my husband Josh on Main Street, Millheim, which is a town that has benefited from recent revitalization. We're really proud to be part of it. One of the things I'm most committed to is not only my own small town, but small towns across Pennsylvania. Half of our population in Pennsylvania lives in a small town, and most of our resources are concentrated in the cities. And better parts of the cities. We see this in education funding, and we see this in all levels of funding and across the state. I have heard a number of people tonight talk about how they want small government. I have heard a number of people tonight talk about how they are not raising taxes. I really take issue with this. In part because what has been happening is the total slash and burn budgeting of basic social services in this state. And this region has suffered. Our farmers have suffered. People that are struggling with addiction have suffered. And small businesses have suffered because we bear the burden of the taxes. Pennsylvania has the 6th most regressive tax code in the state. That means that working people like you and me are the ones paying the majority of the taxes. We have a loophole that ensures that 71% of our businesses are not even paying taxes. So we do have a high tax rate, which does need to come down, but we also need to make sure that corporations are paying their share. Because when we don't, that's what happens, our property taxes go up. It has been my true pleasure to meet my neighbors across the 171st District. We're truly blessed to live where we live. We have clean water, we have access to local and healthy food because of our farms, and we have the hardest working people I've ever met. And they're very skilled, by the way, and I think that perhaps if the businesses around here need to have a skilled workforce, that they should consider raising the minimum wage. This November 6th, I'm asking you to vote for change, but not for change's sake. I'm asking you to put your faith in me because I hold dear the values of this district. I work hard, I'm creative, I believe in tradition, and I hold so close to my heart my community. I also ask for your vote because I have a vast work experience and formal education that would make me a great candidate for state representative. But mostly I ask for your vote because I'm dedicated to making the 171st District a healthy and economically viable place to live. You get asked this question, it was asked tonight, how will you get past bipartisan gridlock? I feel like we're in a place where it is not a question of are we Republican or Democrat. It's do we stand up to corporations or do we let them come into our state, use up the best of our workforce and the best of our resources? I am willing to work with anyone who truly serves the people and not corporations. I'm in favor of campaign finance reform that removes corporate influence from our governance, and further, I have serious concerns about a government and elected leaders who refuse to raise revenues to meet the basic needs of Pennsylvanians. I'm not naive about the work ahead of me, but I am not one to shy away from a challenge. I humbly ask for your vote on November 6th so that I can go to work for you in Harrisburg. I thank you for opening your doors to me and sharing your concerns with me across the district. It has been a true pleasure to be a candidate for state representative for the 171st District, and I look forward to going to work for you. Thank you.
Just a couple comments before we disband here and go to the social part of our meeting as we go back and fellowship and visit and have serve some refreshments. There was a couple comments relative to lobbyist groups, and I'm proud to admit that Farm Bureau is a lobbying group, and I can assure whoever's elected will see some of our faces. And I think that I've had a lot of years of service in with Farm Bureau and with interaction with our elected people, and they tell me that if you look at the hand, some people come into their office like this, some come in like this, but Farm Bureau goes in with an open hand of friendship and support. We don't have anything in our policy book that hasn't been an experience of some member somewhere in this state. Our lobbyist is bound by that policy book and is very attentive to the intent, and serving on the Policy Development Committee and sitting on the floor at the annual meeting. You learn a new appreciation for the English language. Not what a word means, but sometimes what one syllable means. So we don't take this job lightly. We have been a lobbying organization from the word go. The need was there to tell the story from the farmer's perspective. I think you can tell by this meeting tonight that very few of these questions were asked were directly related to farmers. We do this for the good of the community. We appreciate your support with your attendance and good words that we hear throughout the year, that this is the only free forum that has some structure that allows a person running for office to give his views and yet not have to be worried that he's going to be in trouble just by being here. So thanks again for your attention. Join us for a time of fellowship, and I'm sure there's some questions that we didn't get asked. So if you have a question, take this time to talk to your candidates. I applaud all the candidates for putting their name on the line and running for office. And I always have the same message that I give people running for public office. You'll find out getting elected was the easy part. You know, if you're going to be a good representative, the scripture tells us if you want to be a leader, you have to be a servant. Don't forget to vote. I don't need to tell that. That's like preaching to the choir to this group. I'm sure you're all registered voters. The sad part is that in my rough estimates, only half of the people that are eligible to vote are registered. And sadly, sometimes only about 45% or half of them vote. So